Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We have another episode today with Paradise and Morin. The last episode that we did last week, I think, set you guys up quite well because we were vocally very cautious on the market. I know both Paradise and Morin had shorts open, so hopefully that was able to guide you last week. We're back again this week on a Wednesday to give you the next weekly outlook. And I think we've had some major things happen over the weekend that we need to discuss. For example, Bitcoin has lost its weekly noodle. I want to definitely get Paradise's thoughts on that as to how he sees this affecting the market for Bitcoin. I did a video yesterday as well where I went into my macro thesis on Bitcoin. So yeah, there's a lot to dive into today. Just want to let you guys know that tonight we also have NVDA earnings, which are going to, I think, dictate at least the next little period in the market because, clearly NVIDIA being the biggest stock, it tends to lead to big reactions across the NASDAQ and the S&P. So that is a big one tonight. I'll keep you updated in the next video on what happens then in the Discord and Telegram as well. But without further ado, I think we can just jump in and get Paradise's analysis here on how he sees this weekly noodle breakdown. And just to let you guys know, also the 50-day moving average, of course, broke down as well. So yeah, Paradise, what are you thinking about the market at the moment, given what's happened?
I mean, we've shifted the regime on the high time frame now, right? So line in the sand for 2.5 years has been holding the weekly trend, never a close below it. We finally got that close. We closed through the yearly rolling VWAP. Obviously broke this structure level over here at 98K. So, I was sharing this setup on Twitter quite a while back, just as like a sentiment analysis or rage bait, whatever you want to call it. But we're up here and I was basically saying, could this be a deviation if we close back inside the weekly range? And this rotation's happened much faster than I thought. So, we are down at the moment at the weekly FVG, at the range EQ. Kind of the rotation I was looking for was some sort of bounce up into the highs for a short down to the 78K lows. But, whether that happens is here or there. But, if I'm just looking at VWAP right now, we on the yearly, I've been discussing this for a bit. The yearly value area high has been great, a great barometer for bounces. And then the regime sort of changed in here because we started to chop in there. So it kind of came up and swept into that daily FVG. We took out these highs here at 16.5K. And you can see we just sort of accepted back inside and we've done that rotation down. Now we did find support at the yearly developing VWAP. You can see here we bracketed there for a few days. We pushed up that 107.5K level, which is, conveniently this SR flip. This is where I took a short in the market and closed that at like 100K, so a bit too early. And now we've, lost that. We've lost the 365-day rolling. We've had that full rotation down to the lows. So I've actually zoom into this. We've kind of just front run it like a bit. Those lows are down here at 89K. What I'm looking for right now, we are just like locally in a range. So, range highs up here at around 95 or 96. We also have the Q2 VWAP, previous week's value area low. What I was looking for on this push was potentially us to come down, sweep these lows out, actually clip into that daily FVG from April, also developing year value area low. We'll push back up in the range high. It's a nice cluster up here. And, kind of if we start to flip that, that's where I'll be looking for another short because I just think, we're rotational until proven otherwise, just a range we're playing. If we start to accept above this, and obviously the biggest line in the sand on the chart right now is at 100K level. So pretty much where I'm looking for like a high time frame swing short is if we get back up here, fail to get above that. 100K is like for non-crypto natives that are in the market, 100K is kind of the last line of defense for bulls to hold that they wanted to see. So I think a lot of people are scared off right now that we've lost that. So I don't think, short of any catalyst that we just pump through this up into the highs, I think we probably come up here and reject and sort of be hunting the swing short. Potentially just back down to the lows, but I actually think the previous year's value area high down at 81K to 80K makes for a very nice level if we do continue the downtrend.
I think this is going to take a bit of time to kind of find a bottom as well. Like I said this on yesterday's AMA with Fabian, that bottoms usually take a bit of time to form. And actually the way I'm viewing where we are right now is that the cycle is actually over. Now, people's initial reaction is like, oh, what do you mean the cycle's over? Because they think of the 4-year cycle. But what you have to understand is Bitcoin's a macro asset now. So one cycle that was powered by the DATs and the ETFs has come to an end because we've seen that reflexivity now shift to weakness. Now we need to form a bottom, and then there needs to be a new catalyst which forms a new cycle for Bitcoin. So I don't necessarily subscribe to this, 4-year bear market framework. I think Bitcoin can form a bottom over a couple of months. Of course, it can go lower, and then there can be a new catalyst, which I've discussed on the last couple of shows, with the liquidity influx that we're about to see to send the market higher eventually. So, I think, people saying on X, oh, the top's in. It's like, yeah, it isn't locally, but zoom out a few years and you actually might see it going a lot higher. So you kind of have to think of the market and altcoins as well as mini cycles, because when you start thinking in terms of the 4-year cycle, I think it's dangerous, because you'll miss out on opportunity to the upside, and obviously you won't be able to protect yourself to the downside during periods like this. So that's my framework for the market at the moment. And yeah, I think obviously the way you guys trade is it's based on momentum as well. So if momentum shifts, you should be able to get in once Bitcoin is starting to show signs of putting in a bottom. Have you started to see those signs yet, Paradise, or is there more downside before you would kind of say, all right, I think there's a high chance we've bottomed here?
I'm not seeing any signs. I don't think, I think this would be a great place to put in a bottom. Now we've done the full rotation of VWAP, but, bottoms don't just sort of come down, do this, and then go back up. After that much selling, you're kind of expecting like what you want to see is a rounded bottom. I actually think Fartcoin's a fantastic example of this. People are asking like, is the cycle over?
A rounded bottom on Fartcoin. That's a good one.
Yeah, people like, is the cycle over? Are we in a bear market? It's like, just look at something like Fartcoin, just from its local high after the all-time high. We're down almost 90% off that. We pull up the indicator that Morin uses a fair bit. Just in terms of this, what you want to see is basically this to flatten out, price to sort of compress under it and get back above. And then you want to see this curl up, and then you're riding in line with the trend. So at the moment, things take time to bottom. Like you said, it's not just going to pop back up. I think we need that actual ranging period where it just brackets between 2 points, and then you look for that breakout. And that's effectively the signs I'll see. Maybe if we keep buying up things, like I'll just use Fartcoin here as a general alt barometer, even though it's not, but just picture this as any altcoin chart. I think we need to range for an extended period of time and then start to accept above trends. And that's when we can sort of look to position into things. I'm not one of those people who has interest in just knife catching bottoms. I'm more interested in buying breakouts and stuff with the confirmation, because I just sleep easier at night that way. But
what do you make of dominance? Actually is going down despite Bitcoin going down, which is the first time we've seen like alt relative strength in a while. And I talked about this on yesterday's show. I think the reason for that is that alts front run Bitcoin with the 10/10 liquidation event, and then Bitcoin has front run the equity sell-off. So you're kind of seeing like risk assets front running each other. But it's interesting because if the market, and I spoke about this with Fabian yesterday as well, like if the market does recover, you could actually see alts repricing quicker than Bitcoin. I still think you need a Bitcoin rally to have that overall liquidity injection for like a broader altcoin run. But in terms of like a local recovery, there is some evidence to suggest that maybe alts will actually lead the recovery just based on the fact that they're showing better relative strength right now.
Yeah, alts took, when BTC was selling off, things were starting to pump yesterday, like Aster and that. So I think alts want to go up. I just think they keep getting hampered by the excessive spot selling we have every US
Bitcoin,
session.
yeah.
I'm waking up every morning because I miss US session, obviously, being in Australia. I wake up every morning to see lower prices. But in terms of dominance, kind of played out exactly how I was discussing with you in streams like months ago. We just looked for the weekly trend to hold the whole way up. And then once it lost it, just sort of did the whole gold fractal, like just pictures the H4 noodle on gold. This 60% level was of high importance as an SR flip. And then, once we accepted below the weekly, we're just kind of rejecting off that level. So I haven't actually really looked at dominance at all. I've really just been focused on looking at BTC.
How does that change how you trade? Like if dominance is breaking down, does it mean you're more open to altcoin longs? Does it change how you view the market?
Not really. Kind of, like you said, you want to see that Bitcoin-led rally, right? So if we start to see this pump, I think we see alts come off the back of that. But my whole focus lately has just been trading level to level in BTCs because the levels are clean, and also I just think 99.9% of alts look terrible right now. You get things that pump and they last 12 hours and then they die again. So there's no real narratives or anything to sustain.
That's been happening a lot. Like Believe had its pump, came back down again. Grass pumped yesterday, coming back down again. Uniswap pumped, coming back down again. So like these rallies are failing to sustain. Even Zcash, which is one of the strongest coins in the market, keeps getting slammed down. I do think, however, it would outperform if Bitcoin recovered. I think it would be a really strong runner, but for now, yeah, you're right. Also finding it difficult because of Bitcoin. And that's kind of why you need to chart Bitcoin and pay attention to the trend, because that kind of dictates, what will end up transferring into the broader market. Unless, but I am open to taking little trades. Like I'm definitely open to spotting opportunities. And just because Bitcoin's weak doesn't mean I'm not looking at old opportunities. But it just means you have to be a little bit more patient and more selective than you would be if Bitcoin's in an uptrend, and then you can afford to be a bit more like sporadic with how you enter and trade altcoins.
Yeah, I think until we get a greater lift in the market, BTC led, then alts are just going to be the bank heist analogy. You just want to get in and out as quick as possible. So get in your trade, take your money at like key levels. BTC's just had the cleanest levels to trade. That's why I'm not really focused on alts, but like I think the absolute line in the sand for me, and although it's a bit of a way up, if BTC reclaims 100K, gets back above that, which is also, the yearly VWAP levels we're discussing here, then I think we see that lift in alts. And I think we see people less scared to return to the market and start sort of allocating further down the risk curve. So for me right now, like I'm not going to really touch alts in terms of like swing or spot perspectives until we get above 100K. If we get above 100K, I should say. Other than that, it's just sort of going into the intraday watch list and just looking for outliers to either short, like, Tensor seems very overextended. I don't know where this pump was from, but that would have made a good short. But, any shorts that are happening at the moment, as we're in a greater downtrend with BTC and stuff, I just think these are fades. And obviously, we saw like Asta do a 12% move yesterday, but that's already reverted again. So I don't know. There's that famous tweet from Manager.io or whatever his name is. There's free money on the floor 3 to 5 times a year or whatever it is. It's your job to go and pick it up. I just think this is not a free money period. When that free money is available, will be pretty obvious because everything will get lifted, and then we can actually look for the outliers to trade.
Like in alts, for example, this year there was Trump at the start of the year. I missed that because I was asleep, and then I faded it when I woke up because I thought it was fake. That was a bit of a screw up. But then I was, able to catch. The market didn't really give you free money between February and May. Later in the year, towards mid-year, we had Launchcoin. Like that was pretty big for me personally. Obviously, we had Asta as well. There's been a few of these free money events, but right now, I don't think there's anything along those lines. But the thing is with these free money events is you don't know when they're going to happen, and that's why when not paying attention to the market or starting to get despondent or like not clocking in every day is going to do yourself a big disservice, because what if tomorrow or the day after is that free money day where we get a big narrative that arises or a big liquidation wick, and you're too depressed or complacent to pay attention. You're going to miss those days. Like people that clocked out of the market mid-year when it was really boring, missed the entire DAT trade. They may have missed Launchcoin. They may have missed Asta. They may have missed these other, kind of free money events, so to speak, because they weren't paying attention. So you don't know when that day is going to come. That's why I do this every single day. And that I assume, it's similar with you guys. Like you stick to a consistent routine for years, and then a few times a year you print. And that's the sacrifice it takes if you want to succeed in markets.
Yeah. I also think like if you're checking out for a while and you come back, you don't really know if a pump is a pump. But if you're checking in every day and it's been like, down only, the timeline is despondent, and all of a sudden all your favorite accounts that, trusted accounts, Twitter lists or whatever, are all talking about this hot new thing that's coming through. It's generally like, enough of an inkling that there's a narrative there that you should look at. But you only sort of get that if you're logging in every day and paying attention to the flows, so to speak. So like I said, you wouldn't really know if it's, a meaningful move or a meaningful new coin that's coming out unless you're actually paying attention constantly.
So I want to go on to Morin's analysis now to see if he has, a differing opinion from you. But Paradise, any last closing thoughts on your side of things?
Not really. Just the key levels I gave. If we get that sweep down to 89K and we get a bounce, I'll be looking along that. If we lose that, I'll be looking to take a short down to the Q2 value area low, which is 85,380. If we start to lose that, then my levels disappeared. Then we're looking around 80K for that previous year. Don't know what happened there. For that previous year value area high at like 81,250. So other than that, it's just a range trade for now. If we start to break out above the range, we get above 100K, then I think, we can start to look further down the risk curve. But yeah, just range bound.
And I think when you're in a downtrend like this, you kind of have to take, same as an uptrend, right? You just take whatever the market's giving you. So in a downtrend, you naturally have to fade or be more willing to fade pumps. And when you're in an uptrend, you have to be more willing to believe that dips will be temporary. So you just have to play whatever the market's giving you. And right now, like, it's very clear we're making lower highs. Technically, this is a higher low. So I'm interested to see maybe around that 94K level that you've got there, whether we can reclaim. But I think we'll have to make a decision based on the reaction there. It does look like maybe we'll push there before we go back down for a retest of 90, if that's the way it plays out.
Yeah, in terms of local price action, I'm looking at like 92, this supply cluster here. I think that could be the place that needs to hold for a short bias. If we start to flip that, we're probably going to press above the yearly open again, but just take it minute by minute. I actually love these conditions at the moment, despite the timeline. I think very clean levels, easy trades to take, just if you're playing ranges. So yeah, keen to hear Morin's thoughts there.
Good for traders, bad for investors kind of market right now. But Morin, I think it's been good for you. And that's not to gloat, because I know other people have been struggling in this market, but it's really, I think, suited your system.
Oh, I've loved it. I mean, when it comes to these, like the weekly EMAs, right? Whether it's the noodle or I use the 1225 EMAs. By the time they cross bearish, and then it's like, okay, the trend has shifted, right? The problem is that that's like a very lagging indicator in the sense of, okay, we have a look here just at the weekly. And it's like we had the first bearish cross pretty much last week, right? The first one since back in Jan 2022. Now, again, does that mean that it's over? To me, it's like not necessarily, but it's the context. Like, okay, well, we're now trading below the bands. So what's important to me is like, how does price react if we trade back into? Like, I already know that any reversions of price back into these bands, I'll be looking to be a seller, right? And what you could likely see is, a rotational environment, and where I will be like fully convinced that it's like very over is if like any reclaims of the bands get short-lived and we trade back below, then you have to be very like, I'm not looking along anything. But for now, I can just play these sort of rotations. But the reason I mentioned the bands is like, look, this is when they cross bearish. So, but then if you're just using a simple range, right, and you have a simple rule, which is, okay, if we have a key high, right, and price is ranging, once price trades back into that high, go risk off until price trades back to the range lows. Then you can go risk on again. We start to lose the range lows, go risk off, right? That's what I did in the range at the start of the year. Then let's look at this range, and I remember sharing those messages, not in the last one, but prior. Price comes into the range high, I have the messages in the Discord of me posting like on the 7th of October, I'm risk off. I don't like the reaction. Done. And, I wasn't looking for longs until we traded into the range lows. And that's when I took my first long. Right? It was the setup we discussed on stream yesterday. Last week. Now, I took a loss on that trade. Price came into the demand zone. I saw a lot of aggressive selling taking place. So I scaled into a position half size, announced it in the Discord, and then we had a lack of follow through. Price failed to reclaim the range low, which is where I would have liked to add the rest of my trade. And I took my loss, right? So, but the fact is that I waited till I had the best possible odds in my favor to long, where it's like, I didn't long anywhere here until we got to the range lows into that demand zone, right? But unfortunately, this is trading, right? I don't place a trade and I know the outcome. You don't have these 100% win rates. That's just all bullshit, to be honest with you, right? I have a win rate of like 60%, but when I'm winning maybe 3 to 4 times more than when I'm losing. And when I'm losing, I'm building a position, so I'm losing even less, right? It's the risk management that I care about, most importantly. So to me, this chart now is not as relevant as we have just really smashed through this demand zone, right? So now I'm no longer interested. So then what I did over the weekend is then have a look at some other charts, right? And just kind of look to see, where could we possibly bottom locally. Now, again, this is something that I've repeated time after time since we've lost those range lows and I got stopped out, is like, do not rush to long, right? I feel like for people who don't have experience, who don't have an actual edge in the market, there is absolutely no reason why you should be trying to time the first leg of these local bottoms. What I explained on a live stream on Sunday was like, if you look at this, right? If you know someone who is consistently trying to short this, I think there's a specific word we can all agree that you would call them, right? So how is that any different to when we're looking at price, and we can just invert it here? How is that different than, people telling you like, oh, just keep shorting, keep shorting? Like, yeah, eventually, sure. This right here, to be honest, like I'll explain it after, but this is pretty good reasoning for being a local bottom. But you're gonna have people telling you to, oh no, keep longing, keep longing, keep longing. It's like, price is clearly, sweep the highs, you go risk off, you wait till the range lows. And as soon as we trade above the range highs, pedal to the metal, looking for that breakout, looking for that next leg up, right? So that's just what I advise people is like, don't rush into the longs. The better probability setup is, as Paradise said, you're waiting for a push up, right? Now, whether that's price maybe coming back into 98s. I think we have a supply zone here. All right, so coming back into 98s to 100K, right? That's for me my first level of interest that I would like to see a reaction from, or we get a bigger push up back into 108s, 110s. I don't know. Like for me, that's still an interesting setup. But for now, I know that all my eyes are focused on how do we react from 98 to 100K. Okay, so yesterday in the Discord, I shared how we had these lows. If we go to the left, so this was the demand zone, and then we had this final low at 91.6K. And when I marked up this chart, I marked it up specifically because we had this range back in, again, January, December 2024, January 2025, where the range low was respected very, very well. And then as price reclaimed, we had some consolidation and expansion. So that to me was the only level that was confluent. So we had a range low that was also confluent with this final swing low. So I'm like, okay, if we are to bottom locally, then I would need to see, a lot of aggressive selling taking place at these lows, and I need a base to form. Now, what I mentioned before, you never want to catch the first leg of a local bottom or even a bottom, right? If you are inexperienced, the probabilities are always waiting for the rounded retest, which is what I shared in the Discord. So even though price is trading below the range low, which is the red line, and the swing low, which is the orange line, as we reclaim, you have a nice impulse. And then what do you expect? You see these big candles, you're going to look at your phone and you're going to be like, oh, this is it. And you're going to long, you're going to long, you're going to go, and you're going to long, and you're going to long. And then I'm going to tell you, thank you very much for longing, because of you, I was able to get my long this morning. As we can see, as price then starts to trade into this rounded retest, right? The consolidation that led to the move up, you can see how we have open interest going down, right? Longs getting liquidated, CVD pushing down. So this whole move down was on the back end of all of these longs getting flushed out, right? Closing their positions, adding additional sell pressure. And if we pull up to the delta chart, you can see how, on this first leg, we had a lot of selling getting absorbed. But again, as I say, I don't enter on the first leg. I wait for the higher probability, which is the rounded retest. And then this morning, we had a nice spike of delta, which is then when I pull up my footprint chart and I have a look to see that, okay, we start to trade into that rounded retest. We have a spike in volume. We have a spike in delta. Again, open interest down, price going down. We have longs closing. And all of the selling that is taking place here off of longs closing, getting absorbed, price closes back above the swing low. And then once I start to see, these longs opening and this selling getting absorbed, price closing higher, that's when I'm like, okay, I have enough to start building my position with a clear invalidation below this swing low, right? So when it comes to how, like a question could be, how did I know it was going to be around a retest, right? Compared to price potentially sweeping the lows. Now, when it comes to my system, when we have a consolidation of sorts and then an impulse away, my mind is only focused on the rounded retest, right? But if we have a very, very fast wick into a level and then price reclaims, what I'm then looking for is either when price comes back down is do we front run or do we sweep it? Because there is no consolidation or mini demand zone of sorts to trade on the back of. So that's why it's so important to just not try to catch the first leg, wait to see the rounded retest. But even here, I have the order flow tools, I have the experience to be like, okay, I know what I want to see. I know the probabilities are shit because price is still in a downtrend. But right now, this is the best setup that I've seen to take a long attempt. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go in with the same size that I did when I took a short from 123s. Not at all. I'm maybe taking a third of the size. Why? Because again, the context is we had a very nice demand zone that we absolutely sliced through. That is not a sign of strength. That is a sign of weakness. That's what the market's telling me. So I'm going to listen to what the market's telling me, that the trade I'm taking, although it is very, very good, the context isn't the best. Okay? So because of that, I'm just taking it with a smaller size. So to me, it's just taking this trade, looking to close it out into 98s to 100s. And then the question is, if we do get a push up into here, do I get my short trigger? And then once this happens, can I then start to be like, okay, can we then start to form some sort of larger range or base? If price then comes back into the lows and then we get a reclaim, right? Then that's like the start of a base. But I am in no rush. I tell everyone in the Discord, relax. Now is the time to really just focus on the members, starting to develop their own system, which is, every Wednesday, even today, we're going to have a stream where we're building a system together, right? Showing all the steps. So that's what I encourage people to do in times where you're feeling FOMO to try and long in a downtrend. Is like step away, relax. There's going to be plenty of setups, right? Just because we're in a downtrend doesn't mean that me and Paradise have no idea how to trade it, right? We can easily trade whatever environment, although he can trade a trending environment a lot better than I can, right? But that's pretty much just what we tell him is to relax. There's no rush. Wait for those better setups, And
yeah, and I think you do a really good job of that in the group. Like you can see your channel here with the update yesterday when you called this long, and I think the best part is the educational piece. And people, as you just mentioned, people can come and learn. So we have all the sessions every week. You have yours tonight, where people can actually, create their own playbooks, which is really important in this market if you want to develop a consistent system. So if you're hearing confusing stuff in the video about deltas and all this stuff, come join the Mars High Club. You'll be able to come and learn about it and build your own system. And it can be. I think the best thing about the group is it doesn't need to be a copy of Morin's or a copy of Paradise's system. You can tweak things based on how you want to do things. Do you want to take 3 to 5 trades a day? Do you want to just take one really high conviction trade every few months? Do you want to pair, Fabian and I's fundamentals with the technicals? Because what you can do is, look at what Fabian and I are saying in terms of the overall market. We might have specific sectors. So, let's say privacy's hot and there are a couple coins that look really good there. Then you can translate some of the risk management and, the entries and exit education to have it to do an even better job at managing those positions. So there's all sorts of hybrid strategies you can build, but the important part is that you commit to something and you build it through trial and error and learning what you're good at and what you're bad at.
Yeah, like I know for me, it's my focus is always on just trying to help people build a foundation to start to learn to trade for themselves. Because I know how difficult it is and how easy it might be perceived to some people, but it's difficult when you have no idea where to start. But once you have sort of a foundation that can be provided to you, then it's less about, oh, I can't do it because, no one told me this, no one told me that. The work then is down to you to put in, and then, I'll happily provide my time, and I do in the Discord. I think even just yesterday, as the market wasn't doing much, I know some people would start to long and stuff. So I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna go in voice chat, we can talk. And then there's a couple members that I see recurring, the same names, but who are asking me like actual good questions about, hey, how do I like what would you say to someone who's just starting trading? I'm like, hey, look, I covered this in my educational material, but like we can talk about it here, and then other people chip in. So it's kind of like I'd say like an open mic session. I feel like that's the best way for people to kind of learn, and that's the value. I think that's something I never had. My first year of trading or year and a half, there was no one telling me anything.
That's why you need a support network, and it doesn't have to be Mars High Club. I think in general you just need a support network, even if it's a group of friends that you research and trade with, or it's a Telegram community you find. Obviously, we're doing our best to make our community super supportive and help people start on their journey. So I think whatever it is, whatever means you have, you can, as long as you're doing it with others, it makes it so much easier. I don't think I would have been able to do it throughout the bear market in 2022 and 2023 without my network as well. Like if I was just doing that solo, maybe I would have given up, but I persisted, and then in the bull run, I was able to, realize some pretty crazy goals just because, I was able to persevere during the really tough times. So to do that, it's way easier with people than doing it yourself. Being alone, also you can compound ideas. I said this to Fabian yesterday. Like, I think the good part of being part of a community in general is you can take ideas from multiple people, and then you can go into the chats and you can ask people's opinions, and you can just compound like different perspectives, because oftentimes like when you're finding an altcoin, you end up building your own like confirmation bias as to like why you love that altcoin or why you're bullish. Being able to like get that challenged by other smart people, and then working out the correct entry and exit with others, it means you can enter a lot of trades together, which I think is a powerful thing that if you're in a community, you can execute. And I know that members already do this a little bit, but if you are in our community and you don't do it enough, definitely leverage others, because that's honestly one of the big value adds. Yes, of course, we post our calls and our trades, and there is spoon feeding to an extent, but the real gains are in the network effect that you get through being able to leverage other people's skill sets.
Oh, 100%. And that's even something I do with other traders. I know that my experience lies mostly in playing mean reversions and range extreme trades on an intra-week basis. But I'm like, okay, well, if I want to get better, which I always want to do, right? It's like, all right, well then there's other people out there, some in the Discord where they have more experience than I do. So why not use those resources myself?
Don't worry, next time we have a shitcoin season, we'll get you into some proper trash.
Oh, God. I've vowed to never touch alts again.
No, we'll get you into some trash, bro. Trust me. we'll get you into some good stuff. But
every time Morin,
sorry.
Every time Morin gets into alts, it pretty much tops the market. We've got a good sentiment.
Okay, maybe.
I've said that. Yeah, I remember it was like a couple months ago. I'm like, look, this setup looks good, but I'm warning you. Last time I entered alts, that was the top.
Maybe we'll keep the alpha to ourselves. But look, just being cognizant of time, because I don't want this to go too long for people. Is there any last words on the market, Morin? Any thoughts you wanna share to the viewers?
No. The only thoughts are just don't rush into longs, don't FOMO, be patient. Look for those relief bounces into key zones of supply and demand. Whether it's also into swing highs, but just be patient. Nothing's changed apart from price now being in a relatively prolonged downtrend. So be patient. There's no FOMO. There's going to be plenty of setups to take, but the better EV setups will be to the short side on any relief bounces.
Yeah, until there's a regime shift. But
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess the next thing to look out for is NVIDIA earnings tonight. So let's just get ready for that. That can definitely swing markets. And then probably tomorrow I'll do a more fundamental show based on what occurred. But thanks, guys. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Let us know in the comments what you think of this this trio, and if you like it, we'll keep it running as a regular thing.
That's good. Cheers for having us.
Cool.
Cheers. Thank you.
See you later.